Sticker table.
Oh, it was. I think it makes a nicer scarf than what it's very nice.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Brazos Valley. My name is Reverend Kiya Heartwood. My pronouns are she, her, they. And we're real happy to see you this morning. We're going to learn a new chant this morning. It's by Abby Spinner McBride. And it goes, sing through my voice, play through my hands, let the way be open. And it goes like this. Sing through my voice, play through my hands, let the way be open. Try it, let's try it. Sing through my voice, play through my hands, let the way be open. One more time. Sing through my voice, play through my hands, let the way be open. All right, y'all try by yourselves. Sing through my voice, play through my hands, let the Wonderful. There's another part. If you can't remember the words to the first part, this is your part. Ready? Let the way be open. 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 Sing through my voice. Play through my hands. Last time. Sing through my voice, play through my hands, Thank you, Darby, for drumming with me this morning. And Cindy is our worship associate, so you're up. Okay.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Brazos Valley, UUCBV, or Brazos UU for short. My name is Cindy Alford, and I am serving as your worship assistant today. We are a welcoming congregation, which means we celebrate and welcome all people of diverse sexual orientations and gender identities. We strive to welcome people across diversities of race, age, ability, immigration status, and belief. We are also a congregation working for reproductive justice. So whoever you are, wherever you have come from, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. We have a few announcements. First, the UUCBV is going to Austin. Please join us on March 13 for Tex UUJM's Legislative Action Day. You'll meet your representatives. You'll have the option to have lunch. You'll hear great music and get to meet other UUs who are making justice real in Texas. There's a link to sign up in the eCast, or Allison can sign you up during coffee hour. It's time to show up. Secondly, we have Side with Love t-shirts. We have a limited number available to pre-order. Sign up today so you have a shirt to wear on Legislative Action Day. And the Stewardship Committee has something to say.
Hi, my name's Darby. My pronouns are she, her, and you can ask me about the stewardship campaign. I do want to just mention briefly that we do know that the mail is on the struggle bus and is not getting stewardship packets out to folks quite as early as we're hoping. And so if you do want a blank stewardship form, I can just give you one, or I can email you one if you aren't getting your information in the mail. And yeah, just try to be patient with us. And today is actually the last day to turn in your pledge forms for extra tickets. And I'd also like to invite Joe up to give us just a little message about stewardship.
How many extra tickets do you get, Darby?
I think 5 or 10. It's a bunch.
Yeah.
Like 5 extra tickets. Win cool prizes.
5 tickets sounds good to me. So my name is Joe Daigle, and some of you know me, some of you don't. I have been a member of this church for about 6 years now, or a little more, and coming to this church for a little bit longer than that, ever since I moved to this place. And when we moved to Bryan College Station, I came not knowing anybody really, not knowing what I was going to do. I had come from a Unity Church of Christianity background, but I had been to a few UU churches, and I knew that I would be accepted there. I knew that I could go to the UU church no matter what city I went to, and that it would be a place that I would be welcome. And so I immediately was like, well, okay, I gotta check this place out. And then of course I came here, and here wasn't here. Here was our building on Welborn. It was not in the Neil Rec Center, believe it or not, just like my kids think I was always bald. No, we did have a building before this. What I experienced when I came to that place, and when I came and I met those people, and I experienced the warmth of the community that was here in College Station surrounding this church, I immediately knew it was a place, not only could I philosophically, theologically fit in and would be accepted for my beliefs, but was also going to be welcomed as a person. And then we started making music together. I got to be part of the music staff here. I was the music director for 3 years, or 2.5 years. I was the music director for this church, and just found so much joy in working with the people of this church. So that's one of the things that needs to me. When you talk about what a church is, the theology has to fit, because if you don't fit with the belief structure, and I love that we don't have a creed. I love that it's principles that we agree to work with and to be part of the community. I love that. It's not like you have to believe this. So that's huge, that has to work, and that's the minimum for me. But the big one was the community part. And the big one was, is there going to be a place where my children can get a good experience learning about religions? And the fact that we use sources from all over the place, and from the scientific community, not to mention the other holy or somewhat more generally accepted as holy books, we use all of that with the UU Church. So I was like, what a great way to get my children a little bit of education about something they won't learn about in school. And I didn't want it to be a very dogmatic place that I brought them, because I really, just like one of our principles, encourage them to be discovering their own search for truth and meaning in their own religious selves inside them. And so this is a place where they can thrive and do that. And so I am very thankful for this church, for the UU Church in general, but especially for the UUCBV. I have felt welcomed and part of the family ever since I've been here. So thanks.
Our call to worship this morning comes from Dawn Cooley, and she says, because there have been times when shame has crushed our ability to be wholehearted, we let go of who we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we have not always had the courage to be imperfect, we let go of who we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we have struggled to have compassion for ourselves and others, we let go of who we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we have been afraid of our own vulnerability, we let go of who we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we are sometimes too scared to live authentically, we let go of who we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we want to be wholehearted people, confident in our worthiness and our belonging, we let go of who we ought to be and embrace who we are. Reverend Don Cooley.
Please say our chalice lighting words with me. We light
Like the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, as a beacon of hope for all who seek justice, dignity, and compassion, and in celebration of the life of truth and meaning we share together.
Now all please join me in saying our affirmation.
Love is the spirit of the church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
As Unitarian Universalists, we believe there's a spark of the divine in every person. And this is your great opportunity to say hello to people that you don't know. If you don't have a name tag and you would like to wear one, they're right outside the door. But this is your chance to speak to the people you don't know in the room and just say hey and recognize their divinity within. Go for it.
Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Are you tired? The time changed. Raise your hand if you really want that extra hour of sleep. Yes, nap time in the afternoon. Let's make it happen. Okay, my name is Allison. Robin, you gonna take a nap this afternoon? Me too. My name is Allison and I am the Director of Religious Education here. I use she, her pronouns. And this is the time where I tell a story that's applicable if you are a baby, all the way up till your final years on earth. And today, we have a wonderful story called A Cup of Tea. Isn't it? Nanine, a Japanese master, welcomed into his home a university professor who had asked to see him. The professor arrived, answered the master's simple, polite greeting with a brusque, arrogant reply, and strode past him into the house. The old man followed his guest quietly into the sparsely furnished living space and watched, his customary peaceful expression undisturbed, as the professor seated himself without being asked. "Will you honor me as my guest for tea?" Nanine asked the professor. "Yes, I'd like tea," was the blunt reply. "And I want to ask you some questions," the professor continued with a self-satisfied smirk. They say you are very wise, and I would learn what you have to teach. Certainly, Nanine replied. I will gladly share all I know, but first, let's have a cup of tea. The professor frowned at Nanine and then sighed impatiently. Very well, he said, his voice pert. He rearranged his silken coat. After tea. Nanine focused on his task. He prepared the tea to the perfect temperature, steeped it just long enough, but not too long, and set the simple, lovely dishes in an orderly arrangement on the cloth. The professor cleared his throat and adjusted his coat again. Nanine at last finished all his preparations and was ready to pour the tea. The master held the pot over his visitor's cup and began to serve him. The professor impatiently reached for the cup before it was half full, but Nanine kept filling the cup. He poured the visitor's cup 3/4 full and then kept on pouring. When the cup was full to the brim, Nanine kept pouring, and the tea ran over the edge of the cup onto the saucer. Nanine gazed at the cup and continued to pour, and the tea overran the saucer and began to run all over the table. The professor just watched until he could no longer restrain himself. The cup is full, no more will go in. So it is, said Nanine contentedly, and he stopped pouring tea into the cup. He looked at the professor with his kind gaze and said, like this cup, you are full to the brim with your own opinions and your own importance. How can you learn anything unless you first empty your cup? So my question for you is, where does your cup fall on the full to empty continuum? If you think your cup's a little too full, what can you do to empty it out just a little bit? And now this is the part of the service where if you want to join me in religious education, we'll meet at the back of the room. And I invite everyone else to sing us out with this little light of mine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
You're going to need your teal hymnal number 1008. When our heart is in a holy place. And I believe that Joe is going to sing, and Kevin's going to play guitar, and it's going to be awesome.
We didn't discuss it. So we can start making
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our stories from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place,
our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Now's the time in our service where we share our joys and sorrows with the entire community. And I will bring a mic out here if you have any joys or sorrows you'd like to share. We would like to hear it.
I just got a quick one. It's really quick.
That's okay.
All right. I just have a really quick, it's an update on a few weeks ago, I expressed a concern about a friend of mine who went into hospice. And his goal and dream of getting married was fulfilled, and he got married and is happily married to his partner now, and super good things, and he's really, really happy about it. So that is my joy.
Anybody else? Ken?
Well, I want to say yesterday was my brother's birthday, 80. Oh my gosh, can you believe it? So, Monday is my birthday, the 13th, and so I'm going to be 70, so that's getting up there. But I'm glad to be in good health. The thing is, I'm going to Austin on Monday night. A bunch of my brother's friends, he's really involved in the Austin music community, and they're doing a big party at Don's Depot. That's a music club that's been there for 4 decades or something like that. It's one of the old clubs in Austin. But he was already telling me about all these musicians that are going to turn out for his parties. It should be pretty fun. Exciting.
Jesse?
Sean?
Yeah.
I'll go first. Mine's sad news. So my mother raised horses with her husband, who's passed a number of years ago now. And they together had some of the original horses. Rosie had a daughter named Lindy, and Lindy has now just passed. So she had a rough time for a long time and had declining health, and my mother finally had to choose to end her life. So some of our closest companions can really touch our lives, and so here's to Lindy, and if there was a horse heaven, I hope she was there. So.
I'm sure she is. We also, come back.
Oh, okay.
This involves you.
Oh,
Yeah,
me too.
we have a joy to share too. This is a little bit related because I wasn't here last week. But we finally got to dance, contra dance again with everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And John Ivy and I played the music for the
Yes,
band, so
it was great.
a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
so
great
we're
to
looking
play
forward to
again.
the next time too.
Great to play again for a
Yeah.
band.
So that was fantastic.
Anybody else? We're going to light a candle for all the unspoken joys and concerns in the room. And all blessings on you. So this morning, I'm talking about accessing vulnerability. Now, why would you want to do that? How many people hate vulnerability, hate being exposed? All right. Well, this sermon might as well have been called, Let's Hang Out with Brene Brown this morning. Brene Brown is from the University of Houston. She's at the University Social Work School. She's got a PhD, and she's spent the last 20 years studying shame and vulnerability. Pretty happy conversation, right? Here's what she found out. She interviewed thousands of people. She started out with just women. And when she was doing the research, she found out how people felt about shame. And when you're a woman, the shame is that you haven't done everything. Right? We're supposed to be good at everything, and we're supposed to smile while we do it and look good in heels. Right? And guys, when she started interviewing guys, they expressed a whole different idea of what vulnerability and shame meant to them, because they're supposed to be able to fix everything. They're supposed to be strong all the time, and they're never supposed to sweat. The women aren't supposed to sweat either. I don't know how that works, but. And so it's a little bit different. And one of the things that she said that really struck me was, she said, you can tell a woman who's done her work if she can sit with a man who is expressing weakness or a vulnerability, and he's saying, I can't do everything, or I don't know what to do now. And she doesn't go, well, butch up, and do it. And you can tell a guy who's done his work where a woman can be vulnerable and he doesn't fix it. He just sits there and goes, yeah, it's terrible. It's hard, right? So what's the story? So she's done all this research, and here's what she found out. Let me just read you a little bit of Brene here. Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. It is the source of hope, empathy, accountability, and authenticity. If we want greater clarity in our purpose or deeper and more meaningful spiritual lives, vulnerability is the path. Here's the thing. You can't be brave unless you take a risk, unless you risk failing, unless you risk vulnerability. So vulnerability is actually the secret spice in the sauce that makes the difference about whether you're a wholehearted person. You know what I mean by wholehearted person? You want to be a wholehearted person. You want to be an authentic person. You want to be an imperfect person. That's a hard one for some people. We want to be perfect, whatever our idea of what that is. Meg said one time, a long time ago, in a sermon that children think they have to do what their parents want them to do when they say, what do your parents expect of you? They expect me to be perfect. And when you ask the parent, they say, we want them to be happy. There's a disconnect between our parents and our children. There's a disconnect in the communication. So what I'm asking you, if you're a parent, is are you modeling imperfection? Do you admit when you don't know? Do you admit? Because it's not what you say, it's what you do. Everybody's reading what you say doesn't matter, really. It's what you do that they're modeling. So, she wrote this book called Daring Greatly, How the Courage to be Vulnerable Transforms the Way We Live, Love, Parent, and Lead. Vulnerability is basically uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Now, she actually struggles with this a lot, because the reason why she went into being a researcher is because it was like numbers. It was measurable. And if it wasn't measurable, it wasn't relevant. She's a scientist. So the idea that vulnerability is the key to being successful in a spiritual and a whole person way, it freaked her out. She had a breakdown. And so then she did a TED Talk. And she explained all this on TED Houston. And she thought, oh great, I'm so embarrassed about this. I'm going to have a violent vulnerability shame storm. So afterwards she's talking to her friend and having coffee. It's like a hangover. She was like, I can't believe I told people that I had a breakdown over this research. And then the numbers kept going up and going up and going up from the YouTube video until now there's 40 million people who have seen it. You have to kind of get over yourself at that point. But it was real effective because people trusted it. It was authentic, right? You know, when somebody's talking to you and they admit their realness, you trust them more, right? Why would you think it would be different for you? It's not. But I'm not saying any of this stuff is easy, it's not. So an example of somebody who risked everything is this person, Michigan Ingathering, who after learning about the unbelievable and unnecessary maternal child death rate in rural India, decided to do something about it. He wanted to develop technology that was effective and efficient at testing for anemia in pregnant women. So here's a TED fellow in 2012, and Brene saw him. And he said, I wanted to solve this problem, so I invented something that would do it. The audience burst into applause. Then he said, but it didn't work. You could feel the letdown in the room. Then he smiled and said, so I made it 32 more times, and they all failed. But finally a smile slid across his face, and he said, the 33rd time it worked, and now deaths are down 50%. Awesome. How many people, think about your greatest successes in your life, whether it was work or family or emotional or spiritual. Was there a crisis of faith? Was there something about it that you had to risk failing miserably and falling on your face? Everybody who performs knows that moment where we're up here and I'm like, please God, don't let me pronounce those words incorrectly. You know, and then you have to decide, okay, well, I don't really know how to pronounce this song. Am I going to try and be corrected by the people? Yes. Yes. You know, what's true? Be that. It's hard. It's hard. That's why I'm preaching about it. You know, I don't know if you know the secret thing, but preachers preach about what they need to hear. It's true. The best sermons are always the ones you need to hear yourself. So, the difficult thing is that vulnerability is the first thing I look for in you. And the last thing I'm willing to show you. In you, it's courage and daring. In me, it's weakness. How many people feel like vulnerability is weakness? Anybody? You admit it? That's awesome. That's how you get well. I'm not hurt. You know, you're bleeding all over the floor. I'm not hurt. When we attach our self-worth to what we produce or earn, being real gets dicey. The good news is that I think people are tired of the hustle. They're tired of doing it and tired of watching it. We're hungry for people who have the courage to say, I need help. Okay, I want you to try it. Just quietly to yourself. Just say, I need help. It's empowering on a certain level, and it's terrifying on another. Right? Everybody needs help. One of my professors at Star King, who's since passed away, Reverend Brazos, he said, everyone is temporarily able. Just a whole different way to think about disability or that you're having health challenges. Everybody is temporarily able. It's going to happen to you sometime, or somebody that you love. So you might as well get comfortable with it. We watched this great movie last night. I don't know if you've seen it, but you should watch it. It's called Crip Camp. And it was filmed in the 70s at this camp in New York where kids with disabilities got to go. And this is way before ADA. In fact, this camp empowered the people to do their own movement. In the 60s and 70s, they started having demonstrations and taking over streets in New York and saying, I'm not leaving. And they went to HUD and they stayed in this building for 22 days until they forced, actually Jimmy Carter, to sign the ADA, the rules. It's like, what? It's going to cost too much money. It's going to cost too much money to change things for people. And it was so great to see the film of the camp, and that was the root of everything. And then the people who were at the camp, the campers, you follow them through the history of disability rights. And it's so empowering to see how they got empowered by just people treating them like humans and people dealing with their issues and having enough self-worth, loving yourself enough to stand up and say, hey, I'm tired of having to crawl up the stairs to talk or crawl up the stairs to go to work. You know, we need an elevator, please. We need a ramp. How did that happen? They were willing to discuss their vulnerabilities. They were willing to be out there and be authentic and say, I'm a human, I have rights, here's my life. It was really empowering. It's on what, Netflix, I think? Yeah. Okay, in the research, there's a significant difference between perfectionism and healthy striving or striving for excellence. There's nothing wrong with striving for excellence. Nothing wrong with healthy striving. Perfectionism is the belief that if we do things perfectly and look perfectly, we can minimize or avoid the pain of blame, judgment, or shame. Perfectionism is a 20-ton shield that we lug around thinking it will protect us, when in fact, it's the thing that really prevents us from being seen. Does that make sense? Or does it seem like a contradiction? Perfectionism is always very different than self-improvement. Perfectionism is, at its core, trying to earn approval, like somebody else. Once somebody else tells me I'm good, then I'll be good. If somebody else comes to the show and they clap and they stand up, I'm going to know I'm a good songwriter. It doesn't really work that way. I played for 90,000 people. I felt exactly the same as I do when I'm singing for you. That's powerful knowledge, right? It's got to come from inside. Our self-acceptance has to be from the inside. And being addicted to perfectionism is a way to hate yourself. Bottom line. In fact, research shows that perfectionism hampers achievement. Perfectionism is correlated with depression, anxiety, addiction, and life paralysis or missed opportunities. The fear of failing, making mistakes, not meeting people's expectations, and being criticized keeps us outside of the arena where healthy competition and striving falls. So one of the coolest things about Renee, she tells you her struggle, right? So she's been struggling with this her whole life. She's a 5th generation Texan. She was raised to do something with her life. You know, be a cheerleader, be on the drill team, be famous, get a PhD, get it done, get her done, get her done. You know, y'all know it, people like this. You might be one of these people. Then she heard this quote by Theodore Roosevelt, and here's what he said. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred with dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who at best knows the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. Anybody willing to admit that maybe they've set their sights a little lower so the risk is less and the risk of pain is less? Maybe, oh, I'll take that job, it's safer. Or I'll go to that school, I can get in that school. You know what I mean? Anybody feel like that? Those of us who are in this church, and we want to build a virtual church that we're going to move it into this beautiful building, which, by the way, there is a tour of the building on Saturday, March 25th at 8:30 in the morning. Is that right? I think that's right. Last Saturday in March, yeah. If you would like to see where we're going and to see the progress in the building, that's your opportunity to come. And the architect will be there, and the contractors, And then they can see our anxious face like we're begging them to hurry up and get it done. Please get it done. Yeah? Okay. So I could go on all day about this, but I'm not going to. But I want to tell you the important stuff. Let's see. To learn to love yourself. Begin by acknowledging yourself as a whole human being with flaws, imperfections, and all. Own and embrace your past mistakes, but realize that they don't define your present or your future. Try to disassociate what you accomplish from your right to be in the world. You know, as Unitarian Universalists, we really believe that there's that divine sparkle in you. You're perfect like you are. I'm not saying perfect means you don't make mistakes. Let's just try to be a little kinder, because you know what I notice is the people who have good self-esteem, they're less grumpy. And they don't take it out on everybody around them. And we are in a church where we want to encourage people to feel safe enough to be themselves and to take risks and dare greatly. And so that's what I want to leave you with. Let's try to be a little kinder to each other and a little kinder to ourselves. Amen.
I'll just mention that there's also Brene Brown talk. Oh, sorry, thank you. There's also Brene Brown special on Netflix. And I watched it multiple times. It is delightful. She is really so likable. Have you seen that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
And Meg too, because she had to watch them all this week. Yep. How's that?
Now, let an offering be taken to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. This church shares the proceeds of the offering plate donation every week to support important nonprofit organizations with which we work. This month, we are proud to support the Arlene Campbell Humanitarian Foundation. Their mission is to provide medical supplies and equipment for health facilities in Ukraine and to help facilitate training and research programs between American and Ukrainian scientists and physicians. Please be as generous as you can.
So we have a very special treat for you all while the offering is happening. Mr. Mike Daigle is going to sing for you in honor of St. Patrick's Day.
All right. Hi. Hi there. I don't know about you, but you know, early on in my life, St. Patrick's Day always came around, and I never did understand why they got a holiday and, you know, a big celebration, and you don't really do that for anybody else. So I mean, we have our Oktoberfest and things like that. But the Irish have cornered the market on having a day to celebrate. And of course, they say they're celebrating St. Patrick for driving the snakes from Ireland. And that's a real good story. But I wondered about, you know, just why we should identify with the Irish and celebrate with them. And so, you know, and I'm like you, I went to school and many years ago and studied in world history about the Irish. And all of that just went in the back of my brain. And, you know, because I was in Louisiana at the time, and I was French, so I didn't see I was ever going to need Irish history. And then I went there. In 2002, in September of 2002, I went there, and the whole history just unfolded in front of me. It was amazing. From the view of the island as you approached it on the ferry, you just see this glistening, beautiful green spot in the ocean. And you can understand why part of that history was centuries, not just a few years, centuries of invaders. And they beat back invaders from the sea, and everywhere you went there were battlements and forts and things to keep the invaders out. In like the Cork River, they have a chain across the bottom of the river. It links about that big around, and they have a big wheel, and two people had to pull that chain up from the bottom of the river to keep them from invading the country up the Cork River. And so it just was obvious, that history of being, embattled all their lives, and yet they endured. Irish established themselves anyway and endured as Irish. And, in the 1850s, they had something that was a world event called the Potato Famine. And at that time, Ireland was broke up into 5-acre plots. And every man who wanted to sign up could sign up with the landowner to produce potatoes, which he got paid for, and that would raise a family much in at that time, a middle-class kind of way. So it was a good goal, but that landowner was responsible for that tenant. And so what they did, they couldn't afford to pay them. There was no potatoes. So they gave them a ticket to elsewhere in the country. So they went everywhere, all kinds of places, New Zealand and America. We got a whole bunch of folks. And the truth of it is, they lost 4 million people to relocation, starvation, and associated diseases. Half their population, 4 million people, went elsewhere. And now the tables were turned. They were the invader, and they weren't well liked. Most places they went in the world, especially here in America, the Irish were not well liked. Yet they endured. Something gave them the strength to endure. And it's something you folks talk a lot about here in the church. And then even in the 1990s, they had a revolution that almost split the country up. Religiously motivated, like most are. And for the first time in history, the world had to deal with terrorism as a warfare method. It was the first thing that came along that was real terrorism. Yet they endured again, came back stronger than ever, and they were always strong. So, you say, well, I'm going to do a song that's a grandfather speaking to his grandson who's going off to war. How can that be a figure? Because in this song is the emotion, the love, the great love that the Irish people have, and not only for life, but for each other. And this song is kind of like the rite of passage for that tradition of passing on that love that holds the generations together. So we'll do a tribute to the Irish. Nice show. Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the leaves have fallen. 'Tis you must go, I must bide. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow, for when the valley's hushed and white with snow, 'tis I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, dead, and dead I well may be. And come ye to the place where I am lying, and kneel and say, and Ave there for me. And I will feel you gently tread above me, and o'er my grave a warmer place will be. And I will hear you whisper that you love me, and I will rest in peace until you come to me. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valley's hushed and white with snow. 'Tis I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Daddy boy, oh, Daddy boy, I love you so.
Before we extinguish the flame, I'd like to remind you, the t-shirts are here, we've already bought them. They're $15 and they have the name of our church on the back. And that way, when we go to things, we can look like a baseball team. That's awesome. And if you're going to the Capitol tomorrow and you need a ride, let me know after service. I'm taking the van, so I'm happy to drive anybody that wants to go.
We give thanks for these gifts we have given, for those we receive, and for each other. May your generosity return to you tenfold. Now, please join me in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish flame,
but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we gather together again.
Now you need the gray hymnal. It's number 108. My life flows on an endless song.
Richard Cato. That would be an A?
No, we're playing F and G.
Okay.
My life flows on an endless song of lamentation. I hear the real, the far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumults and the strife, I hear you. thoughts still are winging, when friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
Go in peace.